Hello and welcome to this session on working online, from interview to getting started in your new role. Before we get started, if you've been to an online interview recently, take a couple of moments to think about how you felt before the interview. Did you feel more nervous than you might usually in a face-to-face interview? Did anything about the interview itself feel strange or perhaps more difficult than it might have done before? This is all completely normal and reflects the huge adaptations that lots of us have had to make to our lives over the past year. This session can help you to feel more prepared for any online interviews you have going forward, whether it's your first or whether you've been to a few already. We'll also cover some tips and tricks for starting a new job while working remotely. Just to add that there will be a list of links related to the information that we're going to cover today directly below the link for this video on the Grad Get Ahead Blackboard site, so do be sure to take a look at these after this session. So as you may already be aware, online interviews have become much more common over the past year due to the pandemic. Instead of the traditional interview where a candidate attends in person, online interviews will usually take place on software such as Teams or Zoom. It does look like online interviews will continue to be part of the recruitment process for many employers this year. And while this presents some advantages for candidates in cutting out travel time to get to the interview or saving on some of the associated costs, there are also some important things we need to think about with online interviews to give ourselves the best possible chance of being successful at these. If we think about face-to-face interviews, the in-person nature of these often means that we can get a feel for the type of people who are interviewing us, and they can do the same with us. We can generally read a person's body language more easily in a face-to-face setting, which can help us with adapting our own body language and speech style to develop rapport with the interviewers. The feeling of not being in the same physical space as our interviewers can also feel a little strange or off-putting, and it may make it feel difficult to come across as confident in your skills and your suitabilities for the job that you have applied for. The good news is that each of these issues can be overcome with a little bit of preparation and planning. So before your online interview, it's a good idea to think about the basics. Will the interview take place on Teams or Zoom or another video calling software? And have you downloaded this? You can do this by searching for the name of the software and clicking download, which should provide you with a link. It's also important to know the format of your online interviews. Will it be live or recorded? A live interview is largely similar to a face-to-face one in that you'll be able to see and hear your interviewers asking the questions. These types of interviews make it easier for recruiters and candidates to connect with each other without the need for travel, which is often much more convenient for you as the interviewee too. Recorded interviews are slightly different in that your interview won't involve speaking with real people. Instead, this format of interview involves you recording your answers to some provided questions. You may be given these questions before or presented with them on screen, and there may be a time limit for answering each question. This format of interview is convenient for employers as they don't need to schedule individual interviews with candidates, but some people do find it a little off-putting. This is why it's important to practice your interview skills beforehand. A plus for you as an interviewee using a pre-recorded format is that it can often be more convenient for you too, as you can simply record your answers at a time that suits you before the deadline for completing the interview. Have you tested your software and your computer to make sure that both your camera and sound are working? You can do this by either testing using the test call features available in Teams and Zoom, or by asking a friend or family member to give you a call. If you choose to do this, make sure that you're in separate rooms to avoid any sound feedback on your call. Next, do you need to give a presentation as part of your interview? You'll typically be given information about this beforehand, and so you'll have time to prepare. As part of the test run of the software that you're using for your interview, make sure that you run through your presentation. Is it clear, and are you able to scroll through each slide easily? For information on how to set up your presentation in Teams and Zoom, there are some links provided for you in the information below this session on Blackboard, as I mentioned before. Moving on, a good tip is to use headphones or a headset during your interview. This will allow you to focus on the conversation you're having and will minimise any background noise in your surroundings being picked up. And as well as using headphones or a headset, if you can, you should aim to use a quiet area of your home during the interview. Ideally, this should be a room where you can be alone and close the door to minimise any visual distractions and allow you to concentrate on your screen. If this isn't possible, your headphone or headset will most likely be fine. You should also try to make sure that you won't have anyone moving behind you during the interview, so placing yourself with your back facing a wall is a good idea if you can. You can also blur your background or use an artificial one on both Teams and Zoom, so don't worry if you don't have the ideal setup at home. So now, thinking about during our interview. It can feel difficult to know where to look when we see ourselves on screen, and you may be tempted to look at yourself as you are talking, or to look around the room that you're in instead. However, it's as important to look at your interviewers and maintain eye contact in a virtual interview as it is in a face-to-face interview. You can do this by looking directly at your interviewers as you see them on screen, or by looking into your camera portal on your device. Don't feel like you have to maintain this eye contact all throughout your interview. It's fine to glance away every now and then, but do look at your interviewers frequently. This will help you to appear engaged in the interview process and interested in what is being discussed, which is always helpful when we are going for a job that we want. This is important to remember if you have notes in front of you. Sometimes this is a little easier to do in an online interview, in that it's fine to glance at your notes every now and then, but remember that eye contact is key. Try to place yourself in the centre of your screen and make sure that you're sitting in a comfortable upright position, just as you would if you were going to a face-to-face interview. Another thing to think about is showing engagement. Gentle nodding is a good way to indicate that you're listening, particularly in addition to maintaining eye contact, as I just mentioned. If you're an expressive person naturally and use your hands as you talk, this is fine to do in your interview, as it's important to be yourself. Just be conscious of where you're placing your hands, as you don't want them to obstruct your face as you're talking or listening to your interviewers. Talk at your normal speed and volume, making sure that you're speaking clearly. If the interviewers are struggling to hear you or to understand you, they'll likely let you know. You can make a great first impression by making yourself clear and easy to understand. And this also gives the impression of confidence, even if you aren't really feeling it in the moment. So bringing these points together, an interviewee with good eye contact, open, positive body language, who speaks clearly, will generally always come across well to interviewers. And research shows us that sitting up tall with our heads held up can make us feel more confident and powerful. So give this a try and display some positive body language at the same time. We all know that technology can sometimes let us down by freezing or crashing, and this can be particularly frustrating if it happens in the middle of your interview. The best way to deal with this is to stay calm. Your interviewers will have experienced this with candidates before and will no doubt be happy to wait for you to sort your tech out. So if you need to close your Teams or your Zoom or your Google Hangouts down and reopen it, then let the interviewers know and do so. Once you rejoin the interview, you can explain this to your interviewers and that you're ready to carry on. If you're completing one of the pre-recorded interviews we talked about earlier, check before you start whether it's possible to end and restart your interview in case you do have any technical problems. If you have a bit of a worst case scenario situation and you lose your Wi-Fi and it prevents you from rejoining the interview, then it's a good idea to use your mobile data on your phone if you have it, or perhaps to borrow someone else's, to email your interviewers and to let them know what's happened. You'll then be able to discuss your options in terms of rescheduling your interviews or making other arrangements. As with face-to-face interviews, these are all things that can be practiced beforehand, either by yourself or with a family member or friend, or by having a mock interview with the career service. Look for details on how to do this towards the end of the session. Okay, so everything goes well with your interview and you're offered the job, at which point you're told that for the time being you'll be working from home. This can seem daunting at first, but don't worry, you're not alone. So many people have started a new job from home over the past year, and many companies now have processes and systems in place to support you as you make this change. There are also some things that you can do to help yourself to make the very best start in your new role. First up, try and organise a designated workspace at home for yourself. If you have a spare room, it's great if you can set this up as your own office. However, don't worry if not. It could be that you take over your kitchen table or your dining room table or a space in your bedroom. As long as it's a designated area for you to focus on your work in the day, that will work well. What you can also do is make this a portable space. So pack your laptop and your pens and papers and your notebooks away at the end of the day to ensure that you're still getting that divide between work and home, and that you can end each day, relax in the evening and start fresh the next day. Another great tip is to try and pick somewhere to work that has natural light if you possibly can, as this can help us to feel more awake and alert during the day and fend off those post 2 p.m. slumps which leave you needing a coffee. If you can't guarantee any natural light in your workspace, then it's also a good idea to use lamps or perhaps some other form of lighting if you can. Then have a think about what you need to make yourself comfortable. It may be that you're working on an office or computer chair, but if you're working on perhaps a kitchen or dining room chair, it might be worth investing in a back support so that you're comfortable throughout the whole working day. You might also want to think about whether you need a stand for your laptop, whether you want to use a headset so that you can minimise noise and distraction when you're on Teams or Zoom for meetings, and whether you want a power bank to enable you to be able to connect lots of devices up to your laptop rather than just using the couple of ports that they usually come with. So have a think about this, perhaps talk to your new employer, see if they can supply any of this for you. Otherwise, have a look around online and see if any of these things would work for you and where you could perhaps pick them up. Another tip that lots of people advise is to fake your commute. Often it can be very easy for us to have a little bit of a lie-in before the start of the workday when we're working from home and then go straight to the laptop and perhaps sometimes eat our breakfast there. This can feel quite stale quite quickly, and instead you might want to try faking your commute. So instead of going straight to your workstation in the morning, why not head out of the house, go for a walk around the block as if you were travelling to work, and then come home and start your workday. This can help you to feel refreshed and energetic for the day ahead, rather than not getting any fresh air before you settle down for 7 or so hours of work. Working from home and not being in the buzz of the office and getting to know people when we start a new job can at times feel a little bit isolating. Luckily, there are things that we can do to tackle this. Ask if your employer has, as part of your induction process, arrangements where you can meet other members of your team virtually, have a coffee with them, get to know them, and just have a chat with them like you normally would when you start a new job. You can also connect with your colleagues over LinkedIn if they have an account. Maybe just send them a little message alongside your connection to say that you're starting a new role. You can see that you're in the same team or the same service within your organisation, and you just like to say hi and get to know them a little bit better. You can also attend any virtual events that your organisation runs. So perhaps there are weekly update meetings or training events that you can come along to get a feel for the company and to meet other people along the way. It's always a good idea at events like these to ask questions. That way you can talk to people directly, get to know their role, get to know their skill set and their knowledge, and hopefully develop a connection with them further. We all want to make a good impression when we start a new job. And one of the best ways to do this is to develop a relationship with your line manager. This can include communicating what your working style is and how you would prefer to work with your manager. So for example, if you have quite a visual working style where you prefer information to be shown to you so that you can look at it at your own leisure, it might be a good idea to mention this so that you and your manager can figure out a way to work together. Similarly, once you're given tasks and start to work a little bit more independently in your new role, it's always a good idea to keep checking in with your line manager just to let them know what you're working on, whether there is any information that they need from you, and then very often they can reply to give you an update themselves or perhaps share any useful information or feedback with you. You can also ask directly for this feedback, perhaps if you have finished a project and you're sending it across to your line manager or to the rest of the team. It might be useful here to ask for some feedback on what other people think and things you could improve on for next time. Try not to take this personally. It's all about making sure that we produce the best work that we can and improving our skill set so that we can be successful in our new role. Another useful thing to think about, especially with working from home, is communicating your working pattern to other people so that you can manage expectations. They will know when you're available and you will know that they are clear on when they can contact you and when you will not be contactable. Most people do this by including their working pattern in their email signature. You'll be given instructions on how to set this up, usually once you start your new role. And here you can share your working pattern and working times. So for example, if you work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, you can insert this in your signature. That way, the people you begin to work with know when you'll be available and know when they can contact you and when they can expect a response. And so finally, starting a new job and working by yourself can feel particularly overwhelming at the moment and may not be how you had imagined your start of your career and entry into the working world. So it's really important to look after your well-being as you take these next steps. Make sure that you take regular breaks throughout the working day, whether that's at lunchtime, whether it's faking your commute, as I mentioned earlier on, or whether it's micro breaks, just to step away from the screen, stretch, take a glass of water, and feel a little bit more energised and productive so that you can carry on with the rest of your working day. Make sure that you speak up if you need help. If there's something that you're struggling with or things don't feel quite right, make sure that you speak to your manager or to the rest of the team so that they can help and support you, as they'll want to do. If you're a new member of staff, there will be processes and systems in place that can help you to feel comfortable and settle in to the company over the first few months that you're there, so do make use of these. It can be really tempting to want to work overtime on a regular basis or to spend a long time after the working day has ended finishing up projects and making sure that things are perfect. Whilst having this type of work ethic is really impressive and will no doubt be valued by your employers, make sure that you end the working day on time as much as you possibly can. You don't want to burn out and be working far too much each week and end up feeling exhausted and tired, especially as you've just started a new role. Work your hours, work hard, contribute as much as you can, but unless it's something really urgent, in which case your line manager will communicate this to you, try to end the working day on time as much as you can to allow yourself to make the most of your spare time and relax. Again, this will help you to be as energised and productive as possible when you are at work. So thanks for watching this session. If you'd like some more information, there's plenty on the Grad Get Ahead Blackboard site. You can have another look at Careers TV. We have plenty of sessions over there that are pre-recorded and that might be of interest to you. And we also have some live sessions, so do check the schedule for these. There are also plenty of other resources on the Grad Get Ahead Blackboard site, so do make the most of it while it's available. Remember that you also have access to the My Career online careers resources, where we have loads of information on further study, networking skills, planning your career, student enterprise and interview skills. The Careers and Employability Service is available to help you for 3 years after you graduate and can give you advice on CVs, job applications and interviews and much more. So if you need us, do get in touch with us via My Career Enriched. I'm just sharing some information here on how to access My Career Enriched and how it looks in case you would like to use it to help you with your career plans. And if you've not activated your My Career Enriched account, you can do this by going to the Student Hub, clicking on the My Career Enriched tile, completing your profile, and then having a look around. Thanks again for watching, and do feel free to get in touch with the careers team either via social media, email, or My Career Enriched.